first and foremost, be true to yourself. Don't try to be something you're not. Be authentic and learn to communicate effectively. And I know that because I'm a Scotsman, and I know that not everyone understands me. So I have to modify what I do in order to be correctly understood. It's almost always hard for leaders to ask for help. Some people believe that by asking for help, you're showing weakness. I take the opposite view.
My name is Trevor Vanston. I'm an action-centered leadership trainer. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've trained roughly 350 people. I run a company called Perspective HR based in the southwest of England, and we work right across England and Wales. I'm joined today by my good friend Jim Hutton, and we're actually wrapping up our video podcast seasons on this subject of leadership. And I've asked Jim yet another big question, actually. What would his overall top tip be in terms of leadership? Now, we've spoken a lot about action-centered leadership in these podcasts, the work of Professor John Adair, and we've reflected on this and how this works across any area of leadership in any type of organization. So I'm going to hand over to Jim as to what his overall top tips are for any leader.
Thank you, Trevor. Never an easy thing to try and capture everything in a 1 hour, but look, most people find themselves in the role of leader at some stage in their working life.
Yep.
And it may be thrust upon them. They may have sought it. Like myself, I joined the military to be an officer. I sought the privilege of leading people. And I really didn't know whether I would be able to do it until I got out there and did it. And, you learn on the job. So I think first and foremost, be true to yourself. Don't try to be something you're not. Be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
People see through you really easily, despite what you might think. But if you're not authentic, then you'll be found out really easy. So be true to yourself. Secondly, I would think, I would recommend that you speak up when you see something wrong. It goes back to that, the standard you walk past is the standard you set. If you let something go, then it will become accepted. It will become a norm. And you've got to have a little bit of moral courage as a leader to stand up and say, no, that's not the way we do things around here. You might be doing that as an educative process because the person or the team you're talking to didn't realize that was unacceptable. And so you have to educate them. You don't have to bollock them. You have to say, hey, you may not be aware, but that sort of thing doesn't hold well in this organization. Oh, okay, right, okay, we can deal with that and move on. But if you let it go, it will become a norm. So speak up, and it requires a bit of courage to do so. We talked about, I think in one of the earlier podcasts, we talked about a difference between leaders and managers, and managers do things right.
Yep.
Process, it's about the process. And leaders do the right thing. My top tip is do your best to do the right thing. Sometimes it's really hard. It can be really, really hard to do the right thing, but it's always the right thing to do. In any leadership role, define your main thing. Find your main thing. ACL talks about clear objectives. I'd go a step further and say that, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. In other words, don't get sidetracked. Don't get pulled off course. Stay the course. Unless the situation changes, which means you need to literally change course, then keep your main thing the main thing. Really important. It's almost always hard for leaders to ask for help. Some people believe that by asking for help, you're showing weakness. I take the opposite view. I have found that if you go to your peers, your colleagues, sometimes even your subordinates, selective subordinates. I talked about in earlier podcasts about the role of the sergeant major and the company commander, or the platoon sergeant and the platoon commander. That mentor, where you go there for a bit of advice, and they will respect the fact that you've had the courage to ask for advice. That admission that maybe you don't know everything. And most people honor that and respect it and give you the help that you need so that you can crack on. So be prepared, as Brené Brown says, to be vulnerable. Accept that we all have flaws and there are things that we're not that good at. If you can be comfortable with that, authentic with it, then you'll be a better leader as a result. And then lastly, and we've talked a lot about this, if you're going to be an effective, good leader, know yourself, understand yourself, know your people, and learn to communicate effectively. And I know that because I'm a Scotsman, and I know that not everyone understands me. So I have to modify what I do in order to be correctly understood.
Jim, I'm from Devon. I've gone through that.
You've gone through that as well.
We are brothers. In that.
Yeah, we are brothers in that. But, learn to communicate effectively, understanding that not everyone hears the same way. Not everyone learns the same way. Some of us like pictures. Some of us like words. Some of us like technical things. Some of us understand light, sound, colour. If you're not communicating in all of those aspects, then you're going to miss someone. Someone's going to miss what you're saying. So take a minute to understand who you're talking to, and give the message in as many ways as possible so that everyone gets it. So know yourself, know your team, communicate effectively.
That's fantastic advice. There will be people listening to this podcast will be thinking, I wish I had a sergeant major. And of course, you may well have, but obviously in the world of commerce, business, charities, we don't tend to have sergeant majors. That role is often filled by the head of accounts. Because they have to keep everything righteous. And I always say to anyone that's ever been on any of our training courses will have heard me say that there are 2 golden rules of business, Jim. I think you can take this back to the military. The 2 golden rules are: people will turn up to events if you feed them.
Yes.
And never, ever, under any circumstances, upset the accounts department, because they have the information, they know the knowledge, they know the DNA of the business, they know where all the bodies are buried. And if they need a desk assembled, something taken to the incinerator, they want cakes, you always be the first one to volunteer. It's this whole thing of social capital. You'll get it paid back over and over. So that's my top tips, and perhaps not as scientific as yours, but I'd like to thank you, Jim, for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience with us for our clients. And I know they are people who take this stuff seriously. They've put about 350 of their leaders through the Action Centre Leadership course. We only work with nice people. We only work with people who take this stuff seriously. So thank you for adding to that pool of knowledge.
Yeah, delighted, Trev. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Jim. And I'm sure we'll get you back.
Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers. Thank you.